afternoon to one and all. Before I make a start, I need to know my audience. So, are they all teachers, principals of schools? Anybody from higher education? So, thank you very much. On the outset, it's my modesty to appreciate that I'm being given this opportunity to speak before an August gathering like this. And since yesterday, we are being felicitated for the kind of work that we have been doing as academicians, as a major stakeholder of the society. And I am immensely thankful to Mr. Dr. Bhatia sir for allowing us to be part of this World Education Congress. And yesterday, I was also conferred with a influential professor award of Professor Y.K. Bhushan Award and so on. So thank you so much for this, the organizing team and so on. For me precisely, am I audible to all of you? Okay. So I'm not going to be a one-sided person today to talk. Let's have a little interactive session today because since yesterday I'm getting to have a glimpse of each and every aspect that relates to what is education all about. It's all about sustainability. And if I'm very clear, it was much crystal clear in terms with every other speaker yesterday who made an attempt to bring exact impulse of what you understand by growth of education and sustainability. So that was all about what happened yesterday, and therefore I was like contemplating in terms with what am I going to speak today. Probably that is the reason I didn't give any topic. So I thought about picking up the larger dimension of holistic education, and since because I come from University of Mumbai and I'm also dealing with a center which is related to career education and development. So I thought let us have something to talk about the National Education Policy 2020. That is the first part of my deliberation that I'll give about it. The second thing we'll talk about is the role of teachers. So we'll be having a little larger touch to what you understand by personal branding as well as perspective in terms of the mindset that we all talk about. So let's make a start today. Little in the beginning, I'll be more practical and theoretical as long as the NEP is concerned, and then we'll immediately get down to understand how the whole scenario of education is being changing. So you all have to be with me, right? Okay. So let's move on. It's being said that the destiny of a nation is in the classroom, and those are the words of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, right? And if you have to barge into a little more philosophical angle to understanding the role of a teacher when it comes to education, we may not fail to quote the words of Rabindranath Tagore, where he believes to say that a teacher who comes at the end of the subject, right, he or she who comes at the end of the subject is not living the knowledge, is not practicing the knowledge. Rather, the teacher, he or she, is loading information, knowledge, accumulating information, knowledge in the minds of the children, in the minds of the student. So they be called as dead specimens. And today, the NEP is expecting us to be more active in terms with making education not only internationalized, but also interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary. And therefore, in the last 34 years time, that is the 1986 policy, National Education Policy, which has now changed to NEP 2020. So 34 years, a big span has gone in. And during this span of time, the first initial element that is taken care in the NEP is all about fostering, identifying, disseminating knowledge from the school times, and therefore the concept is now changed into the angle of schooling to secondary to higher education, which is precisely 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. Okay. So skill education is all in terms of innovation, creativity that is now expected that a school child the minute goes in the 6th standard need to understand the concept of value based education through vocalization, and that initially will bring them into the concept of understanding higher education from skill point of view. So skill is something which is very much promulgated in the NEP 2020, and that is where exactly you can say that this NEP 2020 is a milestone during the present government's time. It is well created, it is so curative that it all in terms talks about bringing the concept of skill through human development index. Now, dear friends, we all do know that the youth population, as you talk about India in terms of demographic dividend, is in the age of population size of 22 to 28. Therefore, a child which takes primary, secondary education, goes to higher education, by the age of 2021 wants to fetch up a job, and the job is all about the dreams, the aspirations that the nation is talking about. The nation is aspiring to bringing that employability for the children, for the students. And therefore, when you look into the demographic dividend, the age population definitely is 22 to 28. We are the highest English speaking nation, okay. In terms with when you talk about the Indian ethos and the culturalization and the Indianness in the education, that is also being taken care of. So now what is that we need to look forward is to bring in a better touch of internationalization to the type of education that we are going to impart to our students. And that's definitely a very challenging exercise. The reason because if each one of you must have visited back to the 5-year plans, rightly from 1947 onwards, we must have been getting a glimpse to understand that each and every strategic plan during the 5-year plans used to talk about education in line with development. So it was all about development from 47, which is a paramount important element related to growth of education. So it was all to tackle the issues of literacy. And when we talk about literacy, we cannot fail to deny the fact that the rural side of India is still under the clutches of illiteracy. And the reasons behind them will be multifaceted because it's all about gender divide is there. Even today, a girl child is denied of giving a proper education, forget primary. I mean, they can't even get the formal education. So secondary is way apart from that particular angle. So when you look at the low income countries barging from Latin America, Africa, Asian countries, you will find number of children over there cannot read and write. They don't even get secondary education, even that to that extent they cannot read and write, right. So we cannot deny the fact that there is a divide when it comes to urban population and the rural population. NEP will have to look into all these aspects as well when it comes down to tackling to the very delicate and minute issues that is still now pertaining into the social economic aspirations of the nation. So this is one aspect that needs to be taken care of. As on the salient features of the NEP is being concerned, right from the beginning, as I mentioned, that identifying the potentialities of the education strengths is a minor important aspect. And then you go into the micro, scopic aspects of education when you deal with, you have to look into bringing the concept of value education, community based education, then Indian knowledge system, which talks about the ethos, the cultures, the leaderships that's being legacy wise being promulgated, the kind of capitalization which we talk about in terms of talking about the saints, the philosophers. Each and every aspect becomes embarkment when it comes to bringing it into the well documented NEP that is 2020. So with all of these things that I have mentioned right now before you, when you really talk about then here across what will be the role of a teacher. The role of a teacher over here definitely will be challenging because we will be entering into a new role as long as understanding and identifying the perspective of a child is concerned, that is from the school point of view. Like yesterday, there were a couple of speakers who did mention that when it comes to changing a mindset, the mindset is possibly changed only when the perspectives are tackled well. And to tackle this perspective, it is much needed that first of all, we need to be more holistic when it comes to introspecting the kind of flaws that we have. I am saying this for the reason because I am a Senate member of Mumbai University. So we deal with number of colleges here, and when we come across to understand the teacher's role, many times it happens that the teacher's role in identifying the issues of the students is not that what you can say rigorous. They may look into the face value issues of a child or a student and may not be in a position to tackle it very well. For example, now it's being necessity that every school, every college needs to have a counseling center, right? And these counseling centers will not only tackle to the stress levels of a children or the student, but also will look into giving them a curative decision making understanding, because when you look into the role of a father or a mother today, the third important social member for every society is the teacher. And a child is more close to a teacher when it comes to discussing the issues, tackling, talking about the issues. So here the role of a teacher becomes much important compared to the father or a mother in a family, right? So in this kind of a delicate age, when it comes to talking about their issues, it could be not only be in terms of the learning and the academic issues that is being concerned, it could be also in terms with the aspiration that they think about, because competencies today are having a multi-flowed existence as long as their growth is being concerned. So all of these matters largely when you talk about the mindset, and for changing the mindset, the perspective angle is something that we have to talk about. So let's enter into a small exercise over here. How do we change the mindset and bring into a clear crystal perspective when it comes to a role of a teacher in the classroom? How do we do it? We do it by first of all mapping our own existence as a teacher before coming to the role. And your perspectives keep changing, because biologically speaking, psychologically speaking, when we talk about the existence of a person as a human being on this planet, we do know that each one of us have a different personality. Nobody is unique or similar. So understanding the differences in our personality, the perspectives always change with the situations, with the time, and with the kind of environment that comes across in the due course of time. So how do you understand those criticalities of it will define the type of situation that comes before her. There's a reason probably we define a student learner as a slow learner, average learner, or fast learner. Now that's something which precisely applies to a teacher also, right? So how do we do it? Let's start. First we'll begin with a small brand exercise. How do you personalize your brand? Okay, so personalizing a brand will allow us to understand how are we defining our perspective. So for this exercise, I require 4 people to please come out here. Maybe if you have a good gender balance, I will expect 2 ladies and 2 gentlemen. Somebody who can lead and come over here. Please. Yes. Somebody has to lead, come here. I'm not going to give you a very difficult exercise. It's a simple exercise to personalize your brand before the others. How do you do it? Nobody? Please ma'am, please come. A big round of applause for madam. She is leading us. Thank you ma'am. Thank you ma'am. Yes, anybody else? Come on, come on. Just come here. The context is just how do you personalize yourself as a brand before others. Please come. Thank you very much. So here the dais is with you. You need to personalize yourself. So what is that you have as a good trait or something that is very strengthful before you, that allows you to become an effective person, maybe an effective leader, a good teacher, a role maker, a role changer, anything that you have that will allow you to say to this audience that they may leave some certain mark about you. When they go, they will have something about you in their mind, or they will remember you, mesmerize your looks or your personality, your beauty, your sari, your looks, anything that would really leave a mark in the minds of the audience. What is that you have?
I am Dr. Hello, good afternoon everyone. I am Dr. Priya Rajwade, Principal Pawar International School, Pawar, Mumbai. And I consider myself as a brand because people who know me, people who have worked with me and been with me, know me to be an empathetic and resilient person, and eventually an empathetic and resilient leader. I think that is what has stayed with people who've been a part of my journey. And as a brand, that is what I represent. So if you look at anything today around the world, empathy is at the center of everything, even design thinking. So I think that's how I lead the way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Yes, sir. How about you?
Hello, is it fine? Yeah. Initially, thanks for giving the opportunity to come forward and represent my group. Basically, myself Vijay Kumar Saini, and I am representing Indra Group. And from the Indra Group also, I am representing ICM, that is Indra College of Engineering and Management, Pune, taking like engineering context in this. And talking specifically of branding myself or the thing, I can say the discipline I is the main thing or the keyword that I will say to impart the that I'll suggest. That is a long journey that one should carry on, because without the discipline, I don't think anyone can take the things forward, and that I see more in my students, and they learn from me over a period of time. And when like after a decade, when the student come to me and they say, "Oh, because of this particular thing we are successful in life." So this is one thing I'll definitely appreciate. There may be other things also, but this is the one more only the thing that I
So
appreciate.
it's a summary of these two personalities is ma'am is more in terms of the empathy, right? So that's all connected to the emotions that you carry, as probably because as a woman, as a mother, has more active role to play as a principal of the college, sorry, of the school, and therefore it could be that the students would be relating more to you in terms with how you relate with the empathy aspect. So that's well personified with your looks also, amazing personality. Lovely that I got to understand about one side of how you relate, because handling the school children may not be that easy to. So a big round of applause for ma'am.
Thank you so
Okay,
much.
thank you ma'am, you can take a seat. Sir is all about talking in terms of discipline. So do anybody feel that he should be stern as a leader? Will he have a sternness in his leadership, or is a soft guy? What do you feel? Come on. How do you take it up? Exactly. Assertiveness. Okay. So how is it like? Is it composition of what you call about rationality, assertiveness, the composition of impulsive activities that happens, because dealing with every student in a different manner is something which is very important. I mean, you can't deal with the same student in the same style.
What I can more elaborate in this thing is being more disciplined is not like restricting your freedom, I mean the freedom, or more independent in that way. But when we are disciplined, I think you take the things more collaboratively. Maybe things may be something restricting you, but in a long run, definitely you will
That
win.
gives a proper result.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for your
Okay.
wonderful insights that you've shared with us. Please take your seat.
Okay.
So now it's all about understanding how we personalize your brands. So personalizing a brand also depends upon the micro leadership. And in this entire crowd, there were two who immediately took over that challenge and came over here to personalize themselves. So when you personalize your brand, it is not only about your how you relate to yourself with the audience, it is all about how you leave an impact on them. And impact is something which all in terms relates to how your knowledge gathering is, how you relate it to the circumstances, to the situations, and when it comes to sharing with others, the right way of dissemination is very, very important, right? So this is all that I think the teachers who are doing education and all, like from the domain knowledge of education, they are being trained in the class, how to deal with the class, how to control the class, how to bring in discipline, because at the age of 5 to 6 years or maybe 5 to 10 years time, a child may not have that much of maturity when it comes to class, disciplines, or, dealing with the fellow classmate in the class, or how to respect the teacher. So all of these things are supposed to be taught in the class, right? It could come from the culture, the background that the families do have, but the role of a teacher does have a larger scope in the classroom when it comes to dealing with this. Why am I sharing this with you is because the time they come to higher education, we as higher education teachers may not have time to tackle with those aspects. At the age of 2021, we cannot sit to make them understand the concept of value education, because values are already being created in their mind. Mindsets are already being created in their mind, and we cannot change them unless and until they are facing some awkward situation. So that awkward situation should not come in their life, for which school mentoring, school learning is something where the role of a teacher becomes much, much, much important. And dealing with those delicate minds is something which is something which is very important today under the NEP 2020. Furthermore, it can be then leading to calling the teacher as a fountainhead, which not only gives knowledge, disseminates knowledge, but also deals with the delicate emotions of a children in the classroom. Okay, so the second exercise now we'll play is like you all do have a piece of paper. Okay, so now let us all recreate back the story of Thirsty Crow, right? So I expect you to please make a drawing of the Thirsty Crow with a picture. Okay, so if you can do it, please recreate the story. Before starting, on the page, on the top, please write your name in bold letters. I'm just giving 2 minutes because there are a lot that we have to do as exercise and the organizers have given us less time. Can we recreate back the story of Thirsty Crow? Please write your name on the top of the page. Tejas Pawar. Okay. Very artistic type of Thirsty Crow, because the picture, I don't know whether it's actually picture or a jar or a flower pot, and the pebbles are seen definitely, and the crow is bichara, you know, I don't know what's happening to him. So is it actually a crow? हाँ, तो ये पर्सपेक्टिव क्या है आप बताएंगे? We have learned this in our school times. What happens when a child is learning this? At that time, there is 100% coordination of thoughts, ideas, relating those to exact existence of a crow or the picture, how the matka looks like, what is water, what are pebbles. So they relate it, right? And the relation is such that they are able to coordinate it faster because there is cognition, there is simulation, right? And the simulation is all about how the actions are meted out, because the minute the teacher talks about the Thirsty Crow story, the child is imagining. The crow is like this. When he goes home, window पे अगर कौवा बैठ रहा है तो वो देख रहा है भाई ये काला है, तो he can identify कि sparrow color is different, crow color is different, a myna's color is different. So birds in different ideological perspective of how they looks, the child is able to understand, right? We all have learned, but now what has happened after such a big huge gap of time? पर्सपेक्टिव बदल गया है ना. क्रो हम देखते भी नहीं, हमको पता है, बचपन में देखा है, बार बार देखना जरूरी नहीं है, राइट? अब वो पिक्चर कैसा दिख रहा है, अकॉर्डिंग टू माई पर्सपेक्टिव इट कैन बी टेढ़ा मेढ़ा, बिकॉज लॉट ऑफ क्रिएटिविटी हैज कम, इनोवेशंस हैव कम. नीड नॉट बी दैट मटका शुड ऑलवेज बी गोल राउंड, राइट? किसी भी एंगल में आपने उसको बनाया, लेकिन इट इज ऑफ कोर्स अ पॉट, right? So it all depends on how his perspective is, you know, angling up. That is where exactly it sensibly talks in terms of how we generalize our knowledge. Then Vijay Kumar sir ka is like a small miniature picture, but luckily he is given a sun also there, है ना? So आपका perspective में there is a sun that is being seen, and there is a picture of pot which pebbles are also there. A lot of pebbles are there because he is concerned that he should be in a position to get the water up, so that a lot of pebbles are being put. So he knows the story thoroughly well, right? लेकिन यहाँ पे कौवा थोड़ा अलग लग रहा है हमको, because कौवा जैसा तो लग नहीं रहा है, you know, it doesn't look like a crow. So I don't know how you must have thought about or learned about the story in those times. Were you attentive in the class when your teacher has taught this? So it all talks in terms of how your perspective is changing. So majority of the cases में the perspectives of the Thirsty Crow story has changed. It is not simply a drawing. It is by understanding the practicality of the drawing. Now this is, I think, Thakur, what is the name? I am not getting it. Whose is this? Mayur. Can anybody judge it? Perfect? Any flaws in this? Any flaws? Absolutely perfect, right? वही है जो उन्होंने बचपन में पढ़ा है, right? कौवा भी precisely okay है, मतलब you can't say that it is deranged. It is still to be called as a crow, right? But what I believe is like the magnifying a pot with the pebbles and the pebbles around, you know, it looks like crow meticulously has picked up which are lying on the floor, and then taken up efforts to put it into the jar and get the water, right? The story in terms with the start to end is taken care, right? Maybe थोड़ा कौवा इतना नहीं है clarity में, but fine, you can't really say that this is not existence of what the story that he must have learned. So he's taken that much of pains to generalize the story, recreate back the story in its actual form. Okay, so formatting of it is not generally being changed, it is well taken care of. And then Priya, there are too many matkas, man, right? Yeah, sequential mein she's taken care of the storyline rather, right? Crow is symbolic, yes. So ma'am, it's very, I must say, what you call as curative learning, that is well taken care of, because you are going with the stage implication of how the story has to go in. So there is a length applicable, there is a stage implication applicable, and that probably should be taken care from a kindergarten to a student which goes to nursery to primary, because a child immediately will not be able to understand the entire story, so she is fine. But a child of 3 years may not understand exactly कि crow immediately pebbles कहाँ से ला रहा है pot में डाला है. So there is a sequence application to it. So all in line with all this, we can understand that when you learn with respect to sequences. You cannot generalize things very faster. Like for example, when I deal with my class of management students, if I talk about Philip Kotler, if I talk about Peter Drucker, they will be able to understand because they are students of management, marketing or HR. But the same lessons I cannot take it to a class of social sciences, and if I don't talk about Aristotle over there, okay, Socrates over there, they will not be able to relate because they need to know their subject composition. So subjectivity for every knowledge is rather much important. That exactly happens in the cases of the secondary education or the higher education, but primary education is in the scope of the teacher. The teacher has full scope to bring a larger magnitude and a change to a student's thought process, right? So provocating the thoughts by relating theory to practice and then practical application of the knowledge to action, these three things can be relatively lined up very well when it comes to dealing with a primary education, and probably that is the reason why NEP 2020 is more considerably making it very clear that the conventional and the contemporary education styles, patterns that is needed to be adopted at the school level should be done in an appropriate manner, so that the streamlining of it, which goes to secondary level then higher education level, will be getting more maturity. You can't now expect, we don't have time now to teach all of these things at the higher level. We can't teach them the concept of what you understand by IKS or value composition or community building and things like that. That needs to be in terms of the mindset change up and things like that. Now coming to the flag end of today's lecture, yesterday somebody had spoken that dignity of workers is much important, because now NEP is also talking about vocational education. So vocational is all about catering to bringing skills like carpentry, plumbing, some of the activities that were demeaning in India. Okay, if you look into the Western countries out there, skill education in terms of vocationalization of education, like for example, plumber over there has more dignified role, not only in terms of the money that he or she is earning, it is also in terms of calling that job as more dignified, which has never been happened in the case of India. So it is a composition of what has happened across 1970s, 80s, that a student presuming to take up a degree will always land up taking a government job or maybe taking up a private job. That is where is the dream aspirations have always been thought about here in the case of employability and employment scenarios in India. But now the things are changing. We are bringing them back to understanding the concept of vocational education, wherein we are bringing a dignified worker labor composition back into the environment. So we are talking about the ecosystem. We are talking about the larger dimensions of bringing certain changes in our curriculum. For example, 1991 when the Supreme Court made it mandatory that environment should be one of the composition of curriculum. That is why now today we teach EVS, we teach environment, we teach ecology to our school children as well as the the higher education also. So climate change, global warming, these things are happening. Unless we tell them how to save water, how to conserve electricity, what is called as biodegradable materials, why we have to deny using plastics. If these things are being taught to them at the value composition in the school time, this will definitely make a larger change when it comes to holistic changes that needs to become. Yesterday, one sir spoke about the dignified labor, and I wanted to share one thing. There is one YouTube and one, kind of a clip that is being documented and well moving in the social medias and so on. So it is all about the safai kamgars. We always address them as kachra wala, right? In the whole YouTube, it is being said that it's not we the kachra wala, hum to aapki safai karte hain, kachra aap log kar rahe ho. Right? So, there is a campaigning going on in Mumbai across the whole country that we need to separate the dry and the solid waste. How many households really take care of this? We need to impart this. Yes, that's a good thing that we do it, but we need to do this in the classroom. We need to teach this to our younger generation because they are the ones who will completely being a modelized specimen for the country. So if this sensitization is being done in the classrooms for making them understand, this thinner issues of divide will automatically be taken care. Still now with the higher education, we face the issues of gender trafficking. The social media is a prominent factor over here which is creating a lot of chaos. For example, most of us must have criticized the movie of Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, and in the movie the gender trafficking is very prominently being seen. The minute she is a tomboy, she is not lovable. The minute she turns into a glamorous lady, she is lovable. So this gender trafficking is also major issues which is ultimately a resolution of having an impact of what you understand, a divide between a male and a female, why the cases of rape are being increasing. So how are we tackling with this? The feminist angle or the hardcore feminists, when they talk about all these issues, they talk about women empowerment, they talk about independency, they talk about economic challenges that women face, and today education have made them to become the strong pillar, right? But we cannot deny the fact that we are Indians, so we come from culture, so we need to teach them the morality through the modernity. Accept modernity, accept dignity, in the moral fashion so as to see to it that a male and a female need not be separated. So it's much needed that in a family institution, the father and the mother has a bigger role to play when it comes to giving the same important treatment to a male child or a female child. You cannot do this because in the pandemic times, last 2 years, we have seen that a lot of dropouts are taking place. The enrollment is reducing down as long as the female literacy is being concerned, and that's being rigorously happening in the rural sectors. So it's we who have to promote the ideas that the gender divide still now should not take place, and then furthermore the existence of what you call as human race is possible only when we look in the larger segment, the composition of how we look at making our education more internationalized. Because today the world is changing, the global world wants to learn Pali, wants to learn Sanskrit, wants to learn Gujarati, the Indian languages. What are we doing with our Indian languages, right? So if you ask anybody in this particular August gathering how many languages that you know, definitely our mother tongue will know. English has become an official language, Hindi is something which all of us do know as a Rashtra Bhasha and so on. But despite that, the composition at which we address to talking about a particular language, our official language is definitely English, that's being commercially being accepted. We don't deny that fact, but at the same time, practicing our own language is so enriching. Our mother tongue, it's so enriching. So encouraging a background of vernacular languages, like for example, at the upper high of the education, the languages will suffer. Right? So they are being taken care at the school level, but at the upper highs for the higher education, languages definitely are going to suffer because students will only take up those subjects which will be employable. Right? So that is yet to be taken care of as long as the NEP composition is being concerned, but on and whole, excellently well this is moving up. I hope I am done with what I really wanted to bring before you. Though not very well set up in the format of what I wanted to deal, but I thought let's make it more discursive in terms with the interaction that we had. So thank you very much for the lovely audience, you all were with me. We had a good internalization of our ideas together, the insights were very brightfully taken care of. So thank you very much again to the organizers. Special thanks, special mention of Dr. Bhatia for this happening event for me. So the takeaways are all with you. So we have a very brightful and enjoyable teaching as being good teachers. So that's all from my side. Thank you very much.